Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. I am going to be unboxing my Illumicrate right now. So this is the October Illumicrate, and from now on I kind of want to do an unboxing and reading video for Illumicrate. So I'm gonna be unboxing this bad boy and immediately starting to read it. I actually have the day off today. It's the 1st of November, which is a bank holiday here in Belgium, and so I'm hoping to get some progress in this already. I don't actually remember which book this is, so I also don't know the page length, but typically they're at least like 400 pages, so it's probably gonna be quite a chunky read, so it won't be done in like one day, but I'm hoping to get some progress in it. So we have the Illumicrate box. I already opened it to some extent in order to be able to not have to struggle in front of the camera. So we have the box with the theme card, and the theme for this month is Fairy Tale Forests. And based on that visual, I still really don't remember what the book is. I'll have the spoiler card here. You can pause on it in case you want to have the spoilers. But I'm going to go in rather blind, so taking some paper out to begin with. First item is a set of post-its, so small post-its that you can put in a book, for example, to mark certain pages. So very fun for annotation, and they are forest themed or more witchcraft themes. You know, you have some that are herbs, you have some that are gems and all of those things. So they're very cute. I don't typically use them all that often anymore because I found myself not really needing to annotate or really getting much out of annotation, but maybe I will use them. In any case, it's a very beautiful one, and one that definitely a lot of people would get a lot of use out of as well. Then we have a desk mat, the Otherworld desk mat. It is inspired by The Last Tale of the Flower Bride by Rishani Chachi, book that I haven't read yet. I have actually heard pretty good things about it, and it's a really narrow, long one. So this is the design of it. Let me actually check it out myself. Ah, it's a beautiful bird. It is pretty beautiful. I don't know whether I would put it here or whether I would put it in my office. Maybe here. We'll see. I'll check it out later. I'll try to install it in my desk here. See whether it's works out here or not. Because my desk is a little bit smaller here. It was sawed off from the original IKEA length of the desk in order to fit into the space that I have for my desk. So I'm not entirely sure whether this is too long for the remaining desk space I have. Then we have something in a pouch, which is probably going to be a letter opener, because I already had one from Illumicrate previously. Yeah, it is similar. But what I like about this one compared to the other one is that this one, it doesn't have sparkles. This one is just matted, which is a lot nicer, because the sparkly one, basically it needs to live in its pouch forever because it just releases glitter every time you touch it. So this in that regard is much nicer. I will say that these are things that I would never use, so the fact that I have a second one now is okay. But this one, at least I would be more likely to just put it on my shelf as a sort of ornament, compared to the one with the glitter on it. I have the book here, but I'll skip that one. And there's actually a second type of book in here, which is a notebook, I'm gonna assume, for finding dreams that don't exist. Let me get it out of the packaging to just see whether it's standard blank notebook. Yeah, so it's a standard blank dotted notebook that you can fill in with stuff. I don't typically tend to use a lot of notebooks, so for me this one is probably also not really that useful, which is a pity that my first sort of like unboxing video is gonna have quite a few things that I actually don't use. The only thing that is kind of useful but also not something that I like desperately need is a desk mat. And then we get to the book, which I don't actually know this book. So as I said, I don't actually know this book. It will be kind of interesting to re-figure out why I didn't skip this one. So this is After the Forest by Cal Woods, which has a beautiful, it has beautiful, how do you call it? Foiling. It has beautiful foiling on the cover. This beautiful forest theme, which is then extended into a gorgeous sprayed edge with a bear on it and a pine cone, and then that same sort of like forest theme throughout. Underneath the dust jackets, oh yeah, I love that. So under the dust jacket is a printed hardcover, which has a sort of like text here that's kind of like looks as if it's like being destroyed by time. It's barely legible, and then this beautiful side. So I love me a printed hardcover. I do also love the foiled dust jacket, but I would be even tempted to just have it like here, like that, if it weren't for the fact that the title is not on there. And then we have end papers, which a lovely cozy little seat. I don't know, it's just a sepia that kind of gives it that cozy vibes for me, I guess. And then here we also have another sepia end paper. But so, should also check there is a letter from the author printed in. And then is this one signed or not? I don't think so. Don't think that this one is signed. But lovely edition. But now let me actually figure out what this book is about and see what we're going to be diving in right now. So she knew the recipe by heart, could recite it in her sleep, and yet she was always careful to work with the book beside her, open at the same dusty page, the ink worn with long use. To not do so would result in an altogether different kind of gingerbread, no less sweet but somehow lacking. It would serve, of course, but it would not smell the way the book's baking smelled, enticing and heady, full of rapture and delight, as though to not eat of it would be your very ruin. Greta knew how it felt. She had known the sweetness of the witch's gingerbread, could recall its hold upon her still. The little gingerbread house that had so enticed her and her brother all those years ago had been crafted with more than just cinnamon and cloves, honey and eggs and ginger. There was magic in it too, seeping from the book's pages, working its way into the dough. It was not only hunger that had driven them to eat it. So, a Hans and Gretel retelling, and I must say that when I saw particularly the end page on the end of the book, I did get that sort of like fairy tale vibe from it. So interesting to see that indeed is the case. I don't recall whether I actually knew much about this book before deciding not to skip it, because this really, I'm really shocked about this one. I'm like, huh, what? I have on the inside of the book there's a different explanation, so maybe overkill, but I'll also read that one out. 20 years after the witch in the gingerbread house, Greta and Hans are struggling to get by. Their father and stepmother are long dead. Hans is deeply in debt from gambling, and the countryside lies in ruin, its people starving in the aftermath of a brutal war. Greta has a secret though, the witch's grimoire, secreted away and whispering in Greta's ear for the past 2 decades, and the recipe inside that makes the best gingerbread you've ever tasted. As long as she can bake, Greta can keep her small family afloat. But in a village full of superstition, Greta and her mysteriously addictive gingerbread, not to mention the rumors about her childhood misadventures, are a source of gossip and suspicion. And now dark magic is returning to the woods, and Greta's magic she's still trying to understand, may be the only thing that can save her if it doesn't kill her first. So a retelling. I personally am not always a fan of retellings, so we'll have to see how this one turns out. But yeah, that's what I'll be doing now. I'll start my read for After the Forest and check in with you guys later. Alright guys, we are like a week later or something like that, and I have finished After the Forest by Cal Woods, so I'm here to talk to you guys about it and, you know, give you my review for it. So in my opinion, it was definitely good one, and in parts it even surprised me and was better than I kind of expected. Okay, I think I kind of indicated in the beginning that, you know, I don't read a lot of like fairy tale retellings, so I wasn't entirely sure that this was gonna be for me or not. And I definitely had a lot of struggles at the beginning to get into this. So as indicated in this one, we're looking at the story of Hansel and Gretel, like a decade or so after they returned from their adventure in the woods, and that is actually what I enjoyed like most about it. I enjoyed most of this as sort of like a continuation of a fairy tale rather than a reimagination of a fairy tale. Like I feel like I enjoyed more the sort of idea of like following our characters as they move on past the content of the original fairy tale, and so I enjoyed that sort of setup immensely, and like knowing the backstory of what they've been to, and also like seeing how that has left its impact on these kids. Now Gretel basically has kind of lost some memories when it comes to these events. She doesn't really remember the act of pushing the witch into the oven, for example, which potentially has to do with trauma, for example. Now we're meeting up with Hansel and Gretel like when they are young adults, and basically they kind of have to keep their little family unit afloat. Hans has always wanted to kind of leave the town and set out on an adventure, whereas Gretel is very happy staying within the town and like surviving on her craft, which is making gingerbread. Now when Hansel and Gretel left the gingerbread house, what is different from the original fairy tale is that Gretel took the grimoire of the witch with her, and so she's been using this to make her gingerbread cookies. However, the grimoire is always throughout this book kind of trying to push the boundaries of what Gretel wants to do. Gretel basically at the beginning of this book, for example, only looks at the gingerbread recipe, and she never adds any ingredients such as her own blood, even though the grimoire tries to suggest it all throughout. Now very soon we will have a newcomer come into this story, and many mysterious events taking place around this forest. I very much enjoyed the atmosphere of this one. It definitely feels like an isolated village surrounded by a forest in like a German countryside or something like that. Definitely has that wintry vibe as well going through it, and I really enjoyed that world building to it. As indicated, I had some difficulty getting into it at first. I think the first 100 pages or so, it definitely does take its time to establish the starting off point where we are at the beginning of this story and kind of establishing all the key players within it as well. However, after the first 100 pages, I feel like I was going through this at breakneck speed. I was reading at paces that normally I definitely never read in, so I was basically kind of reading a minute a page type of pace, which normally I definitely need a lot more. I think normally in an hour or something I can maybe do like 30 pages or something, and here I was doing like 40 pages in like 50 minutes, for example. So I was definitely reading at a very quick pace, but I will definitely say that towards the end I did lose some of my interest with this one, and I feel like it just kind of overstayed its welcome. It is a pretty long book. It is 460 pages long, and I feel like it's just kind of lost me a little bit towards that ending. What I also liked less about this is what I just indicated. I prefer for a book to be like for a retelling to be more centered around continuing the story rather than reimagining, and this book basically does both of it. It continues the story of Hansel and Gretel past the events that took place in their childhood, but it also goes back at certain times throughout this book to the events that took place, and we are uncovering new truths about what actually took place there, and like reimagining this fairy tale in that sense. And I don't know whether I really enjoyed that all that much. I definitely think that it was well done, but that's just not something that I prefer to view apparently. Another element to this story which I really enjoyed is the fact that at the beginning of each chapter you have a little bit of a fairy tale story that is being told throughout all of these different chapters. And so this is a sort of like side story that definitely for the first half or so you're kind of wondering like, how does this fit into the story of Hansel and Gretel, and then towards the second half you kind of start to uncover these connections and start to see why this story has been included throughout. So I enjoyed that we were basically getting sort of like two stories immersed into one another. I enjoyed the folkloric elements. I enjoyed the writing. The writing is not too flowery. I'm not a flowery reader and I had no issues with this writing. I enjoyed following our character, though at times it definitely is frustrating, but that is the case with most fantasy stories, I feel like, or like with most stories, I guess there will always be sort of like ways of thinking or ways of acting that, you know, don't really correspond to your way of thinking or reacting. And so at times you can be like, no, why are you doing that? Like, no, just see a reason, because this is not the way to go. But so, as indicated, it kind of overstayed its welcome, but all in all, I do feel like after this was a really good read. Would I have picked it up on my own? No. But did I really struggle with it? No. I basically struggled with like the first 100 and the last 80 pages, which sounds like a lot of struggling, but in principle I also still got through those relatively quickly, and I also don't feel like they were like bad or anything like that. I just feel like the entire thing could have been edited down a little bit more, and then we wouldn't have had those pacing issues as I felt like they were there. But yeah, aside from that, I would definitely say if you're interested in this one, or if you've got it through Illumicrate, then definitely give it a go. I had a good time with this one and looking forward to see what is in next month's Illumicrate box. But yeah, with that I'm gonna end this little unboxing and book review, and yeah, see you guys for the next one. Bye!